It was the final phase of the contest, a race to the finish line. All the three finalists already had gone through 3 days of intense rounds of swimming, cycling, and running, but the last one was different. Less physical and more brainy, this round required little steps to the end of the race, but they also had to watch their backs, or else they'll have to start all over again. Explaining the pawns. This is a 3-player game and each player gets 3 pawns. 5 cowrie shells to determine how to move. Explaining the board. The board is a race track with a base for each player at point A, B and C, and a winning point I. Explaining the cowrie shells. The conditions for movements are as follows. 1 mouth up, introduce a new pawn or move 1 square and play again. 2 mouths up, move 2 squares. 3 mouths up, move 3 squares. 4 mouths up, move 4 squares. 5 mouths up, move 5 squares and play again. No mouths up, move 10 squares and play again. How to play? First square on the tail end near home is starting point for each player. Each player takes turn to throw all 5 cowries on the floor and move their pawns accordingly. The movements of the players are only for one purpose, reach the point I. Player 1 takes the following path, A, D, E, F, G, H, I. Player 2 takes the following path, B, D, E, F, G, H, I. Player 3 takes the following path, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. If a player's pawn lands on the square which is preoccupied by opponent's pawn, then the opponent's pawn is captured and the player gets extra turn to play, also player qualifies to finish the game. The captured pawn returns to his home and has to start all over again. Colored square Swiss. D, E, F, G, H, I are safe places and pawns present there cannot be captured. More than one pawn can be present only at safe places and nowhere else. Extra turn. Whenever a 1, a 5 or a 10 is obtained during a throw of cowrie shells, the player gets to play again. When a player captures opponent's pawn, he gets an extra turn to play. During an extra turn, either the same pawn or other pawn can be played. Points to remember. A player should capture at least one opponent pawn in order to bear off all his pawns, otherwise he has to move another pawn or forfeit his turn until he captures one. If all 3 of his pawn reaches square I without capturing an opponent's pawn, then he has to start all over again by returning all his pawn to his home. If a player has captured any opponent's pawn once, he can bear off all his pawns. No limit for a player to capture opponent's pawn. Winner. First player to bear off all his pawns wins the game. This is a strategic race game called Pancha Keliya. So what is Pancha Keliya? Let us find out. A race game, Pancha Keliya, contains a game board, 9 pawns, and 5 cowrie shells. It is an ancient track race game which can be played by 3 players at a time, aiding in mental sharpening. Pancha Keliya is one of the many recreational board games that evolved from our culture. Get one yourself for a digital detox. Head to the link in the description or visit www.theindianspirit.com.